Sigh.
Dr. Kim, is there something wrong?
I have no idea how to use research funding. There are so many obstacles, like laws, regulations, it's so difficult.
Yeah, I think so too. Should we apply the National R&D Innovation Act when conducting a national R&D project?
Graduate students, or administrators, are using research grants. Still, as PIs and professor, we should understand the relevant laws and regulations.
When conducting research, it is easier to prevent the misuse of research funds if we grasp the principles of using these funds. There are 4 rules and 10 specific principles to consider when using R&D research grants. The 4 parts are explained below. The first rule is to confirm research proposals. The use of government funding should be directly related to the R&D project, in accordance with the research proposal, and should be only used to achieve the research goals. Researchers should check whether an expense is a direct or an indirect cost based on the research proposal before using funds from their research grants. Researchers can use their funds for research purposes only and spend only during the overall R&D project period or in the proper stage of the R&D project period. Even when the R&D period is over, researchers can use funds such as for publications of reports, evaluations, and research allowances for such expenses incurred before the last date of R&D until the reporting date of R&D expenditures. The second rule is to comply with regulations. All government-funded R&D projects should comply with the National R&D Innovation Act and its relevant regulations. The National R&D Innovation Act, like other general legal systems, is composed of laws, the enforcement decree, and the enforcement rules. The publication entitled National R&D Research Funding Use Principles is provided by as a notice by the Ministry of Science and ICT. If researchers misuse and violate the criteria of grant usage, sanctions will be imposed upon the researchers and their research agency. Please read and be aware of the guidelines for the proper spending of R&D funds, which summarizes the main contents that must be adhered to when conducting a R&D project. The third rule is to prove the history of the R&D grant usage. R&D funds for expenses shall be disbursed via a R&D credit card or wire transfer. Financial records and supporting documents are required to disburse the R&D funds. The R&D credit card and wire transfer methods are used to manage R&D expenses more transparently. For example, disbursing external expert consultation fees requires internal approval documentation, including a plan that describes aspects such as the time, the individuals involved, the consultation contents, expert advisory confirmation after the consultation, and proof of the wire transfer. Upon proof of each item, R&D expenses shall be disbursed in accordance with the National R&D Act manual, and in some cases additional proof may be required depending on the research institute's own regulations. The fourth rule is to avoid conflicts of interest. While conducting R&D, conflicts of financial interest among researchers can arise in relation to certain pay, provisions, and research incentives. When using R&D funds, it is necessary to make an effort to prevent conflicts over payments for labor tasks or the research incentives of participating researchers.
Then, how should we pay?
Labor costs shall be allocated based on the Labor Act and the Research Institute's own regulations, such as employment rules and regulations that pertain to personnel management. Research incentives shall be paid based on the awardee organization's reasonable standards that evaluate the contribution of all participating researchers, including students. The execution of funding for R&D expenses shall be conducted.
Sigh.
Dr. Kim, is there something wrong?
I have no idea how to use research funding. There are so many obstacles, like laws, regulations. It's so difficult.
Yeah, I think so too. Should we apply the National R&D Innovation Act when conducting a national R&D project?
Graduate students, or administrators, are using research grants. Still, as PIs and professor, we should understand the relevant laws and regulations.
When conducting research, it is easier to prevent the misuse of research funds if we grasp the principles of using these funds. There are 4 rules and 10 specific